live at home with my parents and work as a freelance illustrator. I used to live on my own, but I quickly came back home because it's more comfortable here. My mom is a homemaker and my dad is the CEO of a big company. My older brother Jason lives nearby and works as the vice president at my dad's company. Jason is set to inherit the company. Normally, I should also be working at my dad's company to honor my parents, but my parents and Jason encourage me to do what I love. I'm very grateful for that, so I actively help out with household chores and contribute more to living expenses. My parents tell me to spend my time and money on myself, but still. One day, while the three of us were having dinner,
And by the way, my fiancé is coming over next week. I'll bring the drinks. Is that okay?
Sure, and that would be great. I'll cook something special. I'll help with the cooking. I wonder what your fiancé is like. I'm looking forward to meeting her. That's what I thought at the time, but Jason's fiancé turned out to be a terrible person.
Everyone, this is my fiancée, Anne. She can be a bit headstrong, but that's part of her charm. Most importantly, she's incredibly kind. We met at a bar shortly after I became the vice president. At that time, I was really unsure if I was cut out to be the vice president. Every time we met at the bar, she would encourage me. She's truly kind.
So, Jessica, I heard from Jason that you work from home as an illustrator. Is that true?
Yes, I'm a freelance illustrator. For a moment, I thought Anne had a cold expression, which left me puzzled, but it was only for a moment.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you. Anne quickly smiled again, so I didn't think much of it at the time. But a few weeks later, when Jason and Anne came over for dinner again,
Here you go, Robert. And for you too, Nancy. Jason, let me pour you some as well.
Anne never served me and wouldn't even make eye contact. When I greeted her with a hello, she ignored me, so I already knew from the start that day. Oh, she hates me. One day after Jason and Anne got married, we all went to a restaurant.
Nancy, Robert, would you like to look at the menu?
Thank you. What should we eat?
Could you pass me the menu? This restaurant is... Anne cut me off before I could finish.
The steak here is popular. The meat dishes are recommended.
Immediately after, Mom handed me the menu so I could decide what to eat. But I had enough and decided to confront Anne. I didn't want to continue feeling uncomfortable, especially with family. Did I do something to upset you, Anne? You ignore me and it feels like you hate me.
Don't talk to me, you leeching parasite living off your parents. Calling yourself a freelance illustrator when you barely earn anything, yet living off your parents' money. You're just a loser. You don't even have a boyfriend, and with that face, you probably never will. You should think more about your future. And don't think you can keep living in that big house. It's for Jason and me. Get out already.
I was stunned. While Anne had been ignoring and avoiding me, she had never been so verbally abusive.
Your parents spoil you too much. They should be tougher on you, like they are with Jason. You think you deserve those fancy clothes and accessories? Your dad must have bought them for you. Your family spoils you and you take advantage of it. They won't leave any inheritance for you. It's all for Jason and me.
Anne stormed off, leaving me in shock. I decided to avoid her as much as possible from then on. I didn't want to cause any trouble for Jason or my parents. One day, Jason and Anne were moving to a bigger apartment. My parents want to help them, but I stayed home, claiming I was busy with work. Around noon, Anne called me. Despite not wanting to answer, I knew ignoring her would cause more trouble.
Hey, it looks like your family dislikes you. You're still living at home like a loser. Even your parents are fed up with you.
What are you talking about?
Jason and I got our new place thanks to your dad. Jason told your parents that you don't need any share of the property, and they laughed, agreeing with him. They don't consider you family.
Wait, what?
So get out of that house soon. Bye.
Anne hung up, leaving me bewildered. The next day I had a meeting with a client at a cafe I used to frequent. After the meeting, I waited for my parents to pick me up for shopping. While waiting near the park, I saw Anne approaching. I looked down, hoping she wouldn't notice me.
Hey, Jessica. House hunting? This area is for the wealthy. You can't afford to live here. You should look for a rundown apartment.
Her mean laughter was irritating, but I decided to confront her with the truth. Anne, you and Jason live in that apartment, right? The one right there? That's my apartment.
What? No way a loser like you could own a place like that.
I'm not a loser, I'm an illustrator. That apartment is in my name, and I have the key. See? I showed her the key, and she was stunned.
There's no way you own that place. I thought it belonged to your dad.
No, it's mine. I let Jason live there because the house was just sitting empty. Just then, Jason appeared with his phone in hand and my dad's car pulled up.
I've been listening to everything, Anne. How could you say such horrible things to Jessica? And you married me for money?
Wait, it's not like that. I have debts. I can't survive without you.
Anne, we suspected you were not being totally honest with us. You're always cold to Jessica, but since she didn't want to talk about it, we kept quiet. We're getting a divorce. You married me for money and treated my sister terribly. I can't trust you.
Please, don't leave me. I have nothing without you.
My mom appeared, having recorded everything. I've recorded everything. You were awful to Jessica, and we can't have someone like you in the family.
It's over, Anne.
No, please.
And by the way, Jessica earns more than Dad and me. Our company's success is thanks to her connections and hard work.
What?
Anne broke down in tears, realizing her fate. Jason filed for a divorce, and Anne was left with her debts. She couldn't keep up and ended up working in a tough job, struggling every day. It was her own fault. Meanwhile, I continued working as a successful illustrator. Jason moved into a nearby apartment. We sold the apartment Anne had lived in and used the money for our family trip. During the trip, we had this conversation.
Let me cover some of the travel expenses. After everything that happened, I feel bad about enjoying this trip on your money alone.
It's fine. I wanted to come here, so I don't mind. But next time, you can pay for the trip.
Sure. Where should we go next? Didn't you say you wanted to go scuba diving in the Gold Coast, Jessica?
Australia sounds great. Let's stay at a hotel with a private beach and have a great time. I can't wait to plan the next trip. I'm Paige, a 31-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, John, who is 2 years older, and my father-in-law, Bob. My mother-in-law, Mary, passed away in a tragic accident just before I got married. So, my husband and I decided to live with Bob. It turned out to be a great decision. Bob was very active in household chores even when Mary was alive, and he continued to help a lot after I moved in.
Paige, welcome back. Dinner is ready.
Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it. When I returned home after visiting my grandmother near my office, Bob had already prepared dinner.
You're busy, Paige. It's only natural that I help with the chores. I know you have a lot on your plate, and I'm here to help as much as I can.
Apart from my job, I also take care of my grandmother, who lives alone after my grandfather passed away. Bob was a retired CEO, having been very successful in his younger days. Now, he was preparing to retire, planning to hand over the company to his only son, John. I knew I had to support John, not just as his wife, but as a wife of the company's future president. I was busy but fulfilled, until one day our happiness was shattered. Bob, are you okay? Stay with me. Bob suddenly collapsed at home and was rushed to the hospital. Though his life was saved, he was left wheelchair-bound and required constant care. I was worried about how to manage his care.
Paige, please. I need you to take care of Dad when he gets out of the hospital.
I can't. I have my job and my grandmother to take care of. I can't manage both. That was also Bob's wish. He wanted to be placed in an appropriate care facility to not burden me and John.
This house means a lot to Dad. Don't you want him to live here as long as possible? I have to focus on the company. You're the only one who can take care of him.
John's words made sense. I wanted to repay Bob for everything he had done for us, so I decided to care for both my grandmother and Bob, even though it meant quitting my job. And thus, my caregiving life began. Bob, it's a beautiful day. Shall we go for a walk?
Thanks, Paige. I appreciate it.
6 months later, I had gotten used to handling Bob's wheelchair. He was still mentally sharp, and we had enjoyable conversations during our walks.
Are we heading to your grandmother, Alice's house again today?
Yes, but we'll take the car this time. It's too far to walk. We spent most of our days at my grandmother's apartment. The double caregiving was overwhelming, but her apartment was spacious and wheelchair accessible. Bob and my grandmother quickly became friends and enjoyed each other's company.
Hi, Alice. We're here.
Welcome. Let's have some tea.
Thank you, Alice. It was fascinating. I brought back the book you lent me.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. I have more interesting books if you'd like. John was born late in Bob's life, so Bob and my grandmother were of similar age and shared many interests. However, my main concern was that John did not help with the caregiving or household chores.
Paige, where's my clean shirt? I can't find my striped one.
There's a white shirt right here. Why didn't you pick up your shirts from the dry cleaning yesterday?
I'm busy with work. You're a stay-at-home wife now. You should take care of it.
John used to help with chores when we both worked, but since I quit my job, he did nothing. One day, he said,
Paige, don't forget about Mom's memorial next month. We need to start preparing.
Of course. I'll handle the arrangements. I started planning the memorial and added my grandmother to the guest list after Bob insisted she should come. However, John was uncooperative. John, please help with the preparations. It's your mother's memorial service.
I'm busy with work. You take care of it.
John called me a parasite, saying I was just lazing around, which made me feel utterly despondent. All my efforts seemed pointless.
Paige, there's something I planned to announce at the memorial service, but I think I should tell you now.
On the day of the memorial service, during the meal,
Paige, get me a beer.
Paige, you're such a hard worker. Bob must be grateful to have you.
Indeed, Paige. You're taking care of both Bob and your grandmother. That's admirable.
Thank you, but it's nothing special.
Don't praise her too much. She's just doing what she's supposed to.
John's rude remarks made the relatives frown.
She's just waiting to get her hands on the inheritance. But she won't get anything. It all goes to me.
The relatives looked shocked. Then Bob stood up and announced,
Everyone, thank you for coming. I have an announcement to make. I'm retiring and handing over the company to a capable employee. John will not be the next president. I'm also starting a new life with a new partner. Please, allow me to introduce Alice.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alice. Paige introduced me to Bob and we grew close. We want to spend the rest of our lives together.
What? You're remarrying? No way! I oppose this. You have no right to oppose. And by the way, I've transferred all my shares to the new president. You won't inherit the company. And since Bob is remarrying, half of the remaining assets will go to Alice. Plus, the money I've been giving you will be considered an advance, like your inheritance, so you'll get nothing more. John turned pale. He had relied on the inheritance. He was also at risk of losing his job because he was incompetent. Paige, thank you for everything. I'll be moving in with Alice. You won't have to worry about us anymore. I'm planning to move into a separate apartment in Alice's building after I divorce John. I'll take care of both of you without being a burden. Oh, that sounds perfect. We'll make sure you're well compensated for your work. I divorced John, who lost everything. Bob sold the house and gave me the proceeds as a thank you for my care. John was left with nothing and was soon fired from the company. He was known as a useless employee. Bob and Alice's wedding was a joyful occasion. Although I divorced John, I remained close to Bob and Alice, wishing them all the happiness in the world.